How is that?
It's going out here and there, but I can hear you.
Yeah. How was that?
There we go. It looks like the connection got brought back a little bit.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
that's a little bit better.
Okay. So you're recording, right? We're in the middle of a session, right?
There, that's a little bit better. Yeah, I can hear you pretty well too. So that's great.
Okay. Look, do you want to hear some some studio magic?
There we go.
Evan,
I'm sorry?
are you ready for some magic?
Oh, there we go. Oh, wow.
Okay.
I was wondering, can you talk a little bit about what you use your console for? Yeah, I want to hear anything you want to set out. That sounds great.
Yeah, this is an analog desk which has
Absolutely.
a bit of automation which we don't use, but generally what we just do is we run all our audio from the computer through those sound cards, and then use the analog output and filter the stuff with analog gear, which is this outboard section. So even if we work basically digital with this computer, this old one here, and work on this desktop, it all runs through the desk in the end.
Oh, wow.
So that's it. This is the workstation. It all runs through the desk, and then we usually record it on like a little hard disk recorder, or we record it back into the computer.
Oh, wow, that's cool. So are you using the analog summing as well?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And also we like to do this. Watch out.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. Wow.
It's good, huh? We wanted to sell it to George Lucas, but he already sold his stuff to Disney, and Disney don't like that type of wooden analog. That's a synthesizer that someone built like 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, actually end 70s. Yeah, it's Michel Weissfish's synthesizer. It's the guy who ran Stein, plays in Amsterdam for interface technology and experimental music and electroacoustic stuff, and yeah, so it's his synth, and I had it for a little while, and it nicely picks up the cell phone. How do you call that? Funk?
Interference? Or
Yeah, the cell phone interference or something. Yeah, the signal. It radiates. It reacts really sensitively to the cell phone. So beautiful.
That's how they did a lot of the Star Wars sounds too, actually, I think.
Oh, really? With interference sounds?
Which is really cool. With the lightsaber sound was running like dragging a microphone behind an old television.
Ah, okay. See.
Like a television that had a tube in it, and so that's how they got. And then like they re-recorded it with a mic that they were swinging around to get to like the Doppler sound.
Ah, wow.
Very interesting.
Yeah, great. You see, I think we have that theory actually, Annie and me, that basically every DSP sound can be rebuilt in the analog world.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, well, there's a question that I actually had because I'm a little bit younger, and you guys have been working for so long. How does hardware? How do hardware and software sort of commingle? So I know you use the DEF, but I know that you don't seem to care where your sounds come from, one way or another. Like, how has that changed over time with computers becoming so prolific?
I think. Wait, try to find a nice angle. That's this. That's actually that's our MOOC. We don't really know what to use the MOOC for, but I figured it's actually really good to put your cell phone on it.
So it's the most expensive cell phone stand in Berlin, maybe.
It's a bit fancy, but we like it. We're like a posh country. We're the richest country in Europe at this point. We have to show off a little bit, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, it's true. We don't know. We don't mind where the sounds come from, and but we have to make them. That's important. If we can't sample other people's works, that's kind of it's a bit of a problem because we don't. We seem like usually. Our approach is that sounds have a quality of their own, and we rather listen to them than actually feel like we make them. But
Right.
but it's hard to judge them in a way. It's like it's sometimes really hard to understand what a sound is there for, and especially if it's someone else's music, it feels like everything has been said and decided on
Yeah.
this range of sounds. So what remains for us to do is to create new sounds, so we're able to deal with them and see how we can how we can understand them. And that's what it's all about. It's basically more about listening and finding correlations and relations between those sounds and creating an architecture of sound. And for this, we have to make those sounds to be able to use them. And if we wouldn't do that, we would just sit there and try to understand other people's music, or just sit there and listen to our environment, I guess, or something. And
Yeah.
it's not really. It's not really the idea to create like the strongest or the most useful sounds, or the best have to have the best sound design or the lowest bass or anything. It's not really about dance music or listening music or electroacoustic music or pop music or classical or whatever. It's really, for us, it's
Right.
pure anarchy, and it's just our approach that kind of sums up all the experience and all the knowledge that we have about music, which takes bits and pieces from all sorts of genres, and then if you project that back onto how we deal with sounds, it
Yeah.
means we're kind of like, we don't really have a dogma in the realm of sound, so it doesn't matter where they come from.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's great, and that's such an interesting answer. I think that, especially, talking about it's not about being the best this or the heaviest that. I think that it sounds a little bit freeing when you're not sort of bound by that.
And I think you find more extreme results in the end. At the end of the day, if you with that approach, you're kind of like, you're always safe, because you don't make sounds that compare to anyone else's sounds. Of course, you can always find comparisons and like whatever. This stuff is louder than that stuff, or this bass is more whatever in your face, or there's more layers of sounds. Or of course, you can always find that, but it's basically, I think what is important is that you develop your own language, and then you tell your stories in your own language, and then it all makes sense, and it's kind of consistent in its own way. And if you would borrow other people's sounds, if you use like sound libraries, you immediately caught in this preconception of what the sound should be used for, and it takes so much more work to
Right.
get away from that, basically. So you only have two options. If you use preset sounds, you can only use them in a kind of accelerative linear way, to say like, okay, this sound has been made to have maximum bass impact, so we place it exactly at the right spot to give it even more impact, to use it in perfection. Or you say, no, I do something with that sound, I make it transfer it into something else. So you use a lot of time and energy to actually transpose it, to modify it, to translate it into something else. So if you do that, you can immediately start with just zero, basically, just a bunch of sine waves or whatever synthesis you use. You kind of use like a preset, or you use a microphone and record something. You can record anything and make anything from that, and it's so much more fun. And you feel like from the very first moment you're in that story. All these things you do are part of your story. Whereas when you use, other people's sounds or preset sounds, you have to do so much work to bring those into your story, and we just skip that. We're just too impatient.